Hello, my name is Anwar Kemal. I'm a retired ambassador of Pakistan, but what I'm going to say today represents my personal views. Today, I would like to talk about the urgent need for the United Nations Security Council to order a ceasefire in Gaza and to enforce that ceasefire. This is in order to bring about an end to Israel's merciless campaign of bombing and shelling, which commenced on October the 7th following an attack by Hamas. The Hamas attack of 7th October was in response to the blockade of Gaza since October 2007, and also to the expansion of Israeli settlements in Palestinian West Bank, and also the Judaization of the West Bank and Jerusalem, and of course the plight of the refugees, and also the plight of the prisoners held by Israel. Israel's bombing campaign has killed more than 30,000 Palestinians, which includes about 20,000 women and children. Since October the 7th, you will be shocked to learn that Israel has dropped 80,000 tons of bombs, 70 to 80,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. This is the equivalent of about 5 Hiroshima-sized nuclear weapons. This represents 4 kilograms of explosives per person in the Gaza Strip. This should not surprise us because the destruction that we see in Gaza today reminds us of the destruction of cities like Stalingrad and Warsaw and Dresden and Berlin and Tokyo during the Second World War. Most of Gaza's 2.3 million people have fled their homes and moved on. First they moved from the north to the south, and now they've been moving all over the place in response to Israeli demands, and they have suffered constant bombardments and privations. And the worst of all is the fact that they are deprived of food and water, so they are slowly dying of hunger and thirst and disease. And the reason is that the Israeli army has blocked shipments, has seriously impeded shipments of humanitarian supplies of food and medicines to Gaza. A most horrifying incident took place on the 29th of February this year, when thousands of people who had queued up to get food from relief convoy were killed, or at least hundreds of them were killed, and by the firing of the Israeli army, and also in the stampede that followed. As a child, I had read the historian Hugh Trevor Roper's book, The Last Days of Hitler, and also I had read Anne Frank's diary, and I was appalled by the poignant sufferings and the appalling sufferings of the Jewish people during the Holocaust, which in fact had a very traumatizing effect on me, reading about these harrowing tales. Therefore, in the light of current events, I am deeply pained and disappointed that the Israeli government and the Israeli armed forces are not showing the degree, any compassion for their neighbors, their Palestinian neighbors. And they justified some senior officials of Israel, I believe the defense minister, he justified these actions by saying that these people are animals and they should be treated like animals. Now, tell me, if any human being says such a thing, does he remain a human being if he makes such a statement? I ask you in all earnestness. Israel justifies its actions on grounds of a legitimate exercise of the right to self-defense. But in exercising this right, one has to apply the principle of proportional response. And Israel has clearly not done that, because for one Israeli life lost on the 7th of October last year, the lives of 30 Palestinians have been extinguished. And if the slaughter and the bombing and the starvation, which is much more insidious, continues at the present rate, then we may well have a situation where 50 Palestinians or even 100 Palestinians would be killed for the loss of one Israeli life. I think that is something the leaders of Israel need to reflect upon very carefully. While the large-scale bombing of Israel by Israel continues, South Africa, which had courageously filed a case at the International Court of Justice, that case unfortunately grinds on. Why? Because the interim order that the court ordered Israel to prevent genocide, that order did not include any order to stop the bombing. So as a result, Israel has simply ignored the order of the International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice continues its deliberations while the situation goes from bad to worse. There is a cliche, and that Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world. And this expression was used by the Amnesty International. Now this is no longer true, because it's no longer just an open-air prison. It has become a concentration camp, with this difference that no food, no water, nothing is supplied, and bombing is going on, and there is no security for the residents of this large concentration camp, as it were, and you have a situation which is going steadily from bad to worse. While we are witnessing scenes that are reminiscent of the Second World War, the United Nations Security Council, which is supposed to bring about peace in the world, that remains paralyzed. And the reason is that the Biden administration has 3 times vetoed any resolution calling for a ceasefire. And as a result, this continues. And why have they done that? They say, well, we would like Israel to complete the destruction of Hamas. But observers have now come to the conclusion that this is no longer doable. You cannot eradicate Hamas. You can kill thousands of members of Hamas, but you can't eradicate them. And in the meantime, the population suffers, and nothing is done about that. So even President Biden has recognized that Israel has gone over the top. We have to understand that the main roadblock to peace is Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. And as a result of his hardline policies, which offer no hope whatsoever to the people of Gaza or the people of Palestine, this violence is expected to continue unless the international community, and in particular the United States and also the Arab countries, the Arab neighbors of Israel, are able to persuade the government of Israel to sit down and implement talk about the implementation of the Oslo Accords of 1993 and 1995. These accords envisage the establishment of an independent Palestinian state to live side by side with Israel, and both the countries would enjoy normal relations with each other. Now, that is the only scenario that could bring peace in the region. How to bring it about? Well, all these countries, the neighboring countries, and Israel and the United States have to sit together, and all the members of the Security Council should also use their powers of persuasion to try and persuade Israel, and then a peace can be achieved, and an agreement can be achieved establishing an independent sovereign Palestinian state. And these powers, including the Security Council, could be a guarantor of such an arrangement. And if that were to happen, I think Saudi Arabia has an important role to play in persuading Israel. At present, Saudi Arabia does not have diplomatic relations with Israel. It is not part of the Abraham Accords of 2019, I believe. And if this could be achieved, an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank, then we could have a very peaceful Middle East. And other countries, Muslim countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh could also seriously consider establishing diplomatic relations with Israel. I believe that is the only way forward in order to bring peace to the region. Thank you very much for your patience.